Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I mean, Jack is a very skilled composer, as you know. He's done the music for the first 2 Mass Effect games, among others. And we really liked his approach because the music in the game is structured to be both a score. So in certain areas of the game, when you're in large battles or where you're walking through the environment, the game is scored like most games. You have kind of the ambient music. But then when you're in the utility rig, which is the vehicle that we have in the game, you're actually listening to Jim, the main character, and his sort of music player, if you will. It's almost as though he has his own iPod that's hooked up inside of the utility rig. And so when you're in the utility rig, the music that we have is very much meant to kind of echo Jim's tastes. And the fact that he is kind of a working class guy, that's where you get the sort of the country music element. But obviously the game takes place on another planet, and so we wanted to have that sci-fi element in there as well. There's definitely a lot of sci-fi fans on the team, and you picked up on a couple of the influences that we do have for the game. Obviously, Lost Planet as a franchise, it's about being on another planet, it's about being on an alien world, and we really wanted to, show facets of that. And so, there are echoes of Hoth in the way the caves are set up. I like to think that, we've got a unique spin on it, but there's certainly, a little bit of that taste in there. And then for the interior sections, where there's a little bit more suspense and you have creatures that are jumping out at you, we definitely wanted to capture some of the atmosphere of the first Alien movie, feeling like you're in this very oppressive, kind of confined, dark atmosphere. Sure. Well, the gameplay variety between the on-foot sections and the utility rig sections is definitely something that's very important for Lost Planet 3. And as you mentioned, the previous Lost Planet franchise installments did have vital suits, and the utility rig that we have is a predecessor to the vital suit. And what we really wanted to do was to make it an essential part of the experience. It is Jim's rig. It's what he uses for his job. It's what he uses for his missions. It's kind of a home away from home for him when he's out in the wilderness. It represents a safe environment for him. And in the previous Lost Planet games, the vital suits, the mecha as you put it, were very much kind of these throwaway weapons. You would jump in one, you would use it until it had no health left, and you jump out and find another one. That's not the case here. There's the one utility rig that Jim owns, and we felt that was a really important distinction to make. And as you put it, the dichotomy between the on-foot sections and the utility rig sections is done in order to show the scale of the utility rig, because it is bigger than any other mecha that we've had in the series before. So we really want you to feel that imposing sense of scale of being able to look down on the environment, look down on your enemies, and that's why we put it in first person. Because in the previous games, if you've noticed, when you are in the vital suit, the camera is still behind you, so you're not quite getting the same sense of scale, and that was one thing that we really wanted to accentuate in Lost Planet 3. It's a little mix of both. It's not a strict sandbox game in terms of being able to go anywhere and do anything. We sort of refer to it as a playground game, in that there are specific areas that you can go to and specific areas things that you can do there, but you're not funneled into a purely linear path. So you'll have missions that will guide you throughout the course of the story, and then you'll have optional side missions that you can do along the way, but it's not a situation of it being, a true sandbox game where there's just no limit to what you can do. We want to keep the narrative very focused, telling Jim's story, showing his character, and so there will be backtracking in the sense that you will visit areas multiple times. In addition to the interior hub that you saw with the hangar, there's also several areas in the environment outside that have connections and branching paths off to other areas. We call it a hub and spoke system. So you have the hub and you have the spokes, and not all of them are going to be accessible from the get-go. You might have to upgrade your utility rig or somehow unlock an item that's going to enable you to access those new areas.
参考にしたっていうよりはプレゼンの最初の前に言ったように自分らがそのロストプラネット1の企画立ち上げ段階ですごいイメージしたものに近いっていう話をしたと思うんですけど、その時にこういうような世界観とかで探索謎で発見していって広がっていくこの なんでしょう、ゲームのペーシングといいますか、そのゲームの大きな意味のフローというか、そういうところはもともと参考にしたというか、やりたかったけどできなかった。でこの部分は今回すごく作れそうだと思ったので、なんでしょうね、ロストプラネット1と2ではできてないんだけど、自分の頭の中に常に残ってたものなので、そこを引き出して、今回の企画にするようにしました。
Just to add to that very briefly, there are points where we are kind of tying things into other games in the franchise. One of the things that you saw in the demo was planting the thermal post. And I mentioned that that ties in the fact that when you're playing Lost Planet 1 and 2, you see those thermal posts throughout the environment. And you have to activate them. They're already there. You have to activate them. And one of the things that we're kind of, putting in as a call out to the fans, and as kind of a hint to the fans, is that it was contractors and explorers like Jim that actually planted those thermal posts in the first place. So you're going to see a lot of connections for people who know the franchise, and we think that's a fun way to reward people who've played all 3 games. It was very much done on purpose, and yes, we do feel it's very important because there are a couple of different ways to tell a story in a game. One of those is to make what we call the silent protagonist, who doesn't really have a lot of personality or dialogue on his own, so the player, literally projects themselves onto that protagonist. And there's a lot of games that do that and do it well. The other method that we've chosen for Lost Planet 3 is to create a very rich character that you can relate to and who you want to support and guide throughout the story, and we think that we've done that well with Jim, and tying him back into his family through calls to them and from them, we feel is a way to enrich his character, not only by showing what he does since he arrived on the planet of EDN3. Those are called struggle mode, and most of the enemies that you fight on foot will have a struggle mode, and it generally happens when Jim is low on health. So when you get attacked and Jim is weakened, the Acrids see an opportunity to pounce. And what we really wanted to do with the struggle mode is not make it into a pure QTE where you just have to push buttons, either rapidly or in a sequence. We wanted to keep the element of aiming, because the game is a shooter, and aiming is such a key part of that. Putting the reticle where it needs to be, and we wanted to bring that into close quarters combat. So when you're in struggle mode, first you have to push the enemy off of you, but then you actually have to aim. He's holding a knife, but you have to aim in order to be able to stab that knife correctly. And we think it's a great way to have very close, intimate, scary encounters with the enemy, but also keep that element of aiming in the mechanic. What I'll tell you is for your viewers that we're really excited about Lost Planet 3. As Oguro-san mentioned earlier, it really represents kind of the most pure envisioning of the franchise that I think we've seen thus far, and we're really looking forward to bringing people back to the world of extreme conditions and following Jim on his story come early 2013. So I would encourage everybody to look forward to that, and to look forward to all the information that we're going to be talking about in the coming months.
Hey Gail, I'm gonna have to call you back.